Hello, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to another live show. Today we have Michi.
Hi.
And Alana.
Hello.
We are here today to discuss Heaven by Mieko Kawakami, which I believe, Michi, is this your second time reading it?
Yeah, I reread it for this. I read it, I think, last summer.
Okay. And this was Alana's first time, right? But not your first Kawakami.
Yeah, this is my second kawakami. I added an avatar because it was bothering my soul.
I like this. It's a good midway point.
It looks great. I haven't seen that avatar before. Anyway.
Oh, this photo?
Yeah.
It's an older photo. I love the same. Actually, no. This is when I had my hair dyed black.
Is it your natural color right now?
Yeah, I stopped dyeing my hair in 2018. I had this urge. I had to have black hair just to get out of my system.
Oh no.
Okay,
that was weird.
Yeah.
What happened?
I don't know, but when it rains, it pours.
Okay. Hopefully. So for anybody wondering, we've been trying to get Alana's video online and it was not working.
Yeah, my
Mac's weird.
Stupid.
Yeah. We've never had that problem before with her devices. So if anybody knows anything about StreamYard, or maybe we'll try YouTube Live next time and just not even do StreamYard. We'll see. But regardless, it was Alana's idea to read this for today's. Yeah, I forget how it came up, but anyways.
It came up in QC84, our QC84 discussion.
Yeah, I think because we were talking about breast and eggs and how good that was, and how we wanted to read more Mieko Kawakami.
Ooh, so you had already read Breast and Eggs as well, Michi.
Yeah, I read that one first, and then I went on a binge of her.
You do that, don't you?
Yeah, when I like an author, I tend to binge them.
That's awesome.
Actually, you know what I think the problem is, low-key? I think I probably need a Google update, but not doing that now.
Yeah, we should try it later after the stream and just see if it works. So we have Urza here. Hello, Urza. And Pepsi Cola. Gamaro. Oh no, what time is it for you?
I was going to ask, what time is that?
So, let us know in the comments if you read Heaven before and what you thought, or if you have any experience with Kawakami or why you're here or whatever. We just love chatting with you guys.
Why are you here?
Yes, why? Tell us. So do you guys want to start with general thoughts about, well, maybe we should do a little description of what this is about, which that alone could be a discussion question. What do you guys think that this is about? How would you just describe this in an elevator pitch?
Ooh.
Elevator pitch, which is what, 30 seconds?
Yes.
Something like that.
It's like a sentence or two.
I'd say it is about a middle school boy who gets bullied and becomes friends with a girl who's also bullied. And it is an exploration of how that impacts them, more or less.
Yes. I would say that's a great. What do you think, Alana? That sounds about right to me.
Yeah, that's pretty spot on. Yeah, you have this young person, this narrator, who has been mercilessly bullied, and then he connects with another young person, first through written word, and they have this connection, and then through this connection, they explore, morality, ethics in regards to the philosophy of bullying. Yeah.
Yes. That was I think those were my favorite parts of the book, was when it was getting to the right and wrong of it, because I tend to be a worldview reader, and I think it's really interesting listening to what people think about right and wrong. Because we live in such a we live in a pluralistic world at this point. So I'm always like, so what do you think about that? You know?
It's for me. So that one scene always really sticks out to me at the end. I mean, in terms of morality, which is where he's talking to Momose. And it always it just really sat with me and made me think like how many people view morality in that way. It's like kind of a hard thing to, I don't know, work through the cognitive dissonance in, like that there would be people like that and that's probably more normal than we think it is. There's probably a lot of people who don't have very strong senses of morals, and just kind of do things for the sake of it. And it's kind of a disconcerting thought a little bit as well.
Right, because Momose is not technically wrong. Like people have their own sense of morality, whether I agree with his sense of morality or not, or therefore lack of morality, this gray morality. You know, you're like, I was reading those sections, I was like, no, but there is a right and wrong. Like for me, I know I have a strong sense of right and wrong.
Yeah.
You know, and how I will and will not treat other people. But yeah, there are people who, in a sense, are apathetic about it or just don't care.
Yeah.
And
or so even like fully nihilistic about it.
Right. And I think you see that with Kojima. She says there's always a reason for suffering. And so if you're going to suffer, what you're going through has a reason. Even if it's not fun, it's not comfortable, you have to look, well, what is the context of my suffering? Whereas Momose is going to be like, oh, that's just the way the world is, with no means to an end.
Yeah, it's almost like Momose could have been a good guy just if he had gotten in with a different group of people. It's like who he ended up surrounding himself with that brought him to be a bully versus Kojima, who's like an active bully. He's like, I don't even know how to describe why he bullies. It's like a power trip for him. Whereas for Momose, it's kind of like he's there, so he might as well.
He's one of those, he's like, I just had it and it evaded me. One of those people who just goes with the flow.
Yeah.
He's a follower.
Yeah. And he's really an active participant if you like pay attention to like even the soccer scene. He's not participating in playing the game because I don't even think they get to the part where Momose and Kojima like have their, because remember they were doing like a basically like a tier thing where the first two people went, then the second two people, and then finally Momose and Kojima, and they didn't even get to go. And I don't think Momose even cared that they didn't even get to go. And Kojima was just freaking out because he didn't want to get in trouble, which is, again, further reason why I think it's just a power thing for him. Like, he's the coolest guy in school. He's the most attractive guy in school. And so, like, to keep this, like, I don't know, it's like a weird thing for him where he's, like, keeping his sense of power by being a bully.
What's that other guy's name? It's such a bit in. Hold on.
Oh, Ninomiya?
Yes.
Yes.
I remember his name.
That name just gives me chills now.
Can you guys hear my AC in the background?
No.
Okay, good, because I'm telling you it's hot outside. I'm 90-something degrees. It sucks.
Oh, wait. Kojima's the girl. My bad. My
Yes,
bad. I've been saying that wrong. It's Ninomiya. That's who I was trying to talk about this entire time. Not the girl. My bad. I get the names confused.
Yeah, no.
We don't know the narrator's name, correct?
No.
Okay. Also, if you hear me crunching, I'm having my between lunch and breakfast snack.
I feel like that's a live show staple for Alana.
It is. Last time I had yogurt and Cheez-Its. Weird combo.
It's your 11sies, as they would say.
It is. It's
yes.
lunchtime on the East Coast. So.
Yes, thanks for putting up with the strange times. Everybody.
Is that a pun?
Huh?
Is that a pun?
I wasn't turned. I was not.
The best of times. It was the worst of times.
Let's see. Dang, there was something else I was going to say, but now I can't remember what it was. Well, why don't we talk about what did you... This is kind of a boring question, but I think it's important. What did you guys, like, do you rate books? Like, how would you rate this one?
I gave this one, I want to say, hold on, I want to say I give it at least a 4 out of 5. Let me go back to because I have a list.
Mm,
Um, no, I gave it a 4.5 out of 5. That's very
nice.
high for me.
I'm trying to see what I put. Yeah, I gave it also a 4.5
Oh, cool.
out of 5.
Nice.
Yeah. The only things, there were just some things where it just didn't feel like realistic, maybe just like the bullying just felt too,
This book was so Japanese for me.
yeah.
So Japanese. It actually made me research to do some Google, like some really quick research on bullying in Japanese schools in Japan, and it's up there.
I'm just like, if this is how kids are over there, that's wild.
Yeah, I've heard bullying is a massive problem in Japan, even in the school system. Like I started researching this after I read the book because I know a lot of people critique this book and say that the bullying is unrealistic. But for me, when I was reading it, I was like, this book is very Japanese. Like I had a feeling that Kawakami was really pointing at a social and cultural issue.
Right.
And so, since I was a teenager, I've been fascinated by Japanese culture. So I was like, this tracks. And so I even found an article written for people who are maybe in Western culture moving to Japan for whatever reason. And they specifically talked about bullying.
Wow.
In the school systems and how, like in Japan, they don't have high happiness ratings. It's a culture of homogeneity. And they have a phrase where, it's, the nail that sticks up that gets beaten down.
Right.
There's a lot of culturally, like if you do things that are considered too loud, even down to smells, like if you wear loud perfume, quote unquote, you're not blending in.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That does make sense because I know when I was researching about North Korea, and I know like they're not exactly the same country, but a lot of the culture, like the collectivistic culture has like overlaps. And one of the things about Korean culture that I think is semi common in a lot of Eastern cultures is like because of the sameness, there's almost like a shame given to anyone who's outside of the norm. Like they actively shame people. In North Korea, they do like whole like things where you're supposed like they do like these whole like lineups where you're supposed to say something negative about people. And I don't know that Japan takes it that seriously, but there is something to be said about that collectivistic nature where in the US, I think just being weak is more likely to get you bullied than necessarily being out of
words out of my mouth, Nikki.
Yeah.
There are people in Japan who really support North Korea and like they advocate for it there. And like some of them have left and gone to North Korea and stuff like that. So,
wow.
yeah,
I cannot imagine the mindset of being like, yeah, North Korea, that's where I want to live.
I know, right?
That's the culture I want to be a part of.
Yeah, there's a YouTube I follow, Takeshi in Japan. He's Japanese and he interviews people in the street.
Yes, I watch him from Asian Boss.
Too.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember him like interviewing this Japanese guy, and this guy was wearing this skin tight spandex black shirt with big white polka dots on it. He was like, if I was in the United States right now, this would not stick out. But in Japan, this is a no-no. He's like, I'm getting stares by wearing this. Another guy, he was middle-aged, and he was like, I like to play my guitar in the park, but people look at me like I'm crazy. He was like, if I was in the United States or in a Western culture, this is encouraged.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that Western readers, or maybe readers who are not familiar with Japanese culture, Korean culture, even Chinese culture, etc., we are so individualistic as Westerners. Yeah. Like the individual has the power. They want you to be assertive. They want you to take dominance. And so even as me, I had to kind of check myself reading this book because people have tried to bully me in school and it didn't work because I'm going to stick up for myself. I was raised in a household that said, don't start fights, but don't come home losing because we didn't raise punks.
Right.
Verbatim. You know what I mean? And so I'm like, yeah, just give him what you got. Give him, kick him, go for him. But he's it's some people would frown on me especially as a woman, being that aggressive in some cases, like
Yeah. I
but
mean,
bullying exists everywhere.
because I was thinking about this. If this was an American movie instead of a Japanese book, it absolutely, the answer would have been the
Fight.
boy stands up for himself and punches Nanomiya in the
Yeah,
nose.
no,
yeah.
that would have been for
Yeah,
sure.
it's going to be a fight, or there's going to be a group of people that are going to rally behind these two
Right.
kids, and it's going to be the best underdog story because we love
Yeah.
an underdog story here,
Yeah.
which tracks historically.
Yeah.
Yes. That's a good point.
We thrive off that, but we have to get out of it. That's why I love books like this, because it forces you out of your own mindset.
Yeah.
Yes. I know. I was not expecting Kojima's answer to this.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how well it really worked out for her in the end, but I still thought it was beautiful. And I think that the narrator did also.
Mm-hmm.
What did you guys think about Kojima's answer? Was that like an effective answer in this situation, or generally? Like, Alana just sort of answered this for herself. It would be
I know my answer, but
yeah.
I'll let Michi go first.
Well, I can't remember the verbatim of what she said, so if you guys could remind me.
I know I might have had it highlighted somewhere what her logic was.
Because I remember her saying something about it all having like a purpose, and
yes,
it's like
yes.
I can't remember what she said exactly, but I remember the gist of being like a purpose, existing for a purpose.
So the scene, she doesn't actually say much, but it's mostly like it's the narrator remembering stuff that she's told him in the past. That's really powerful. So she just reaches out her hands and she laughs and she touches them, and that freaks them out and they run away, the bullies. Or the people just watching, more like. Nanomiya didn't run away until an adult came and shed some light on the issue. But so she was smiling, and he describes her smile as one of ineffable strength. So it's not like she's going crazy. That's not what they're trying to portray here, even though like, from an outside observer, you're kind of like, is she okay? I don't know. But he is seeing this as strength, because she's not giving in to being bullied.
Right. Yeah. She's handling it in her own way.
Yeah. I see her as being incredibly strong, like throughout the whole thing. Like even just, she knows that by being dirty, that she's going to be bullied. Like she knows this. And yet she does it anyway to feel more connected to her dad. Like she's like the most resilient the entire way through. And I think that's really helpful for the main character to have that kind of almost like example of like, hey, it's okay to be yourself and do whatever you want. People are going to bully. That's like the thing that they're going to do, but you make of it what you make of it. I don't know. I kind of like her approach, even though, it's...
Yeah, no, I agree. Because the boy was finally being driven to, okay, I'm going to pick up a rock and bash Nanomiya's head in. That was the answer that he was finally coming to, rather than let them like molest this girl or make him do it, basically. So he was ready to get violent, but she had her own answer of how to solve this, and she did it. So at this point, they were like, he was like, it seemed like the boy was willing to kind of just put up with it for most of the year and then into the next year after the summer of being away. But that wasn't really working in this instance. He couldn't just go along with it without actually doing really bad, really intense harm to, probably the friend that he cares most about. So that was a turning point. So something was going to happen.
I think with Kojima, I get why she approached bullying the way that she did with remaining dirty. Also, using that to pay homage to her father. Also with her stopping, her not eating food. It's, I see why I personally would disagree with it, because she's low-key killing herself.
Right.
And what good does that do?
Yeah.
When you do have a friend who cares a lot about you and is seeing you wither away, but you're starving yourself, you know, people, when you're involved with other people, how much autonomy do you have if you really care about that person? And then she got so, I would say maybe she the way that she reacted to our narrator when he realized that he could get a second attempt to fix his eye. And she kind of almost, I don't want to say shunned him, but she clearly had a negative reaction to that. Why wouldn't she want her friend to fix something that bothers him? And in a lot of cases, it went beyond the bullying. He couldn't see straight.
Right. It messed with his
Right.
depth perception.
Right. It messed with his quality of life.
Yeah.
And so, and
Right.
that's where I felt tension with Kojima,
Yeah.
because this young man has not been able to see properly on top of being bullied.
I
And so if
agree.
there's a grasp of hope that, you know, this thing that's I've had for so long, there was a failed attempt, but maybe there's another attempt to make this work for my improved quality of life, that's a good thing.
Right. Yeah, but I think that's her immaturity and just like being like 12 or whatever age they are. I think more so than anything, there were two reasons that she didn't want him to fix his eye. I think one part of it was her wanting him to be confident in himself, like she would be confident, like she wanted him to have that same level of confidence. But I think there was also the part of her that didn't want to be alone in the bullying. And like if he fixed that, he might stop being bullied. Like they'd have no reason to bully him after that. And maybe there was a part of her that worried that they would drift apart if he was no longer in that situation.
Right.
That makes sense. Oh, I was wondering about that as well. So thank you for that, Michi. That makes sense. She's 12 or whatever, like you said.
Literal
I was
child.
wondering how old they were. Like,
they're like 12, 13 years old.
Yeah, they're in their, well, the last half of the book takes place in the last year of middle school age.
Probably about 13, 14.
Or middle school, Japan. Because, yeah, their grades are different than ours. Okay, so middle school is 12 to 15. So actually, they're a little older than I thought. They're actually like 14, 15.
Oh, okay.
Their middle school is older.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Their middle school is like our
high school.
8th, 9th, 10th. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's about. And then their high school is like 11th, 12th. And it looks like they have like a 13th year because they all go until they're 18.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. We have some great comments here. So
yeah, I like these comments.
I wanted to say hello to John, and Tony is here and leaving some great comments. So so from Japanese lit film and TV, you get the impression that bullying in Japanese schools is horrific. But then film and TV makes U.S. schools look equally nightmarish.
That is such a good point, because I think a lot of people think that bullying in high school is like, you know, dumping people's heads in the toilets, like, you know, throwing them in the trash bins. And I have literally never seen that kind of bullying. The kind of bullying that I've seen is mostly verbal.
Same.
And it's mostly just like putting people down or making offhanded comments or making them purposely be like exactly.
It's more passive aggressive in some cases.
Exactly. Like any bullying that I experienced was almost all like comments. It wasn't anything physical. And I don't remember ever seeing that kind of thing. And I mean, not necessarily the boys would always tell you that kind of stuff, but I never experienced that or knew anyone who was going through that. And like, I have an older brother. Like if anyone would know, he would know, because he's a male. And would have potentially been bullied because he was like a little overweight in high school, but he never mentioned anything like that or was participating in anything like that. So he was either in like a weird middle ground group or whatever.
I think even in the vouching for the U.S. or I think it could depend on the type of school that you're going to.
That's true.
Are you in a more affluent area that this is a private school or whatever, the bullying may differ based on the type of school you're going to. Are you in a more urban area where, you know, you're blending more with more demographics? Like, you know, again, and bullying has changed. There's a comment here with, you know, now that there's technology, a lot of bullying does happen online, and then it transfers over into the school. Like, I'll say for me, like where I went to middle school, I went to a pretty mixed middle school, and I'm on the East Coast, so I don't know, like, you know, like stereotypical East Coast. Chrissy and I joke about this all the time, but stereotypical East Coast, like what you think of when you think of loud Americans. Yeah. And I went to a school that was very mixed. It was right across the street from a not great neighborhood, but a lot of us, it was a school that also had like certain, what's the word I'm looking for? Advanced programs. It was a blend. But so I saw all types of crazy fights, even though I was kind of isolated from the, you know, the kids who came from like the really bad neighborhoods. And so, yeah, I've seen all types of bullying. I've seen fights. I've seen a girl get her. Yeah, I've seen a girl get her hair yanked out.
Yeah, I've seen that. Oh, I've seen they always pull out their earrings before.
And I've seen the passive aggressive subtle bullying at the same time. Yeah. And I noticed that sometimes it can depend on the demographics of those involved.
That's
like,
true.
Those but you know, also fist fights. I mean,
yeah, those do happen.
It's just a lot more assertive in some cases.
Yeah. And kind of speaking to the bullying with Americans are loud. Who'd have thought? Speaking to the virtual bullying, my cousin actually dealt with this, and it's really rough because essentially there was a girl from a different school who made a video about her claiming that she was racist, and completely baseless claims, like had no proof or evidence or anything. But because of who the girl was who said that, she had everyone believe it. She started getting bullied in school so bad that she couldn't go to school because everyone thought that she was racist and a terrible person. And so they treated her that way.
Yeah.
All because some girl from a different school made a video making a claim completely baseless just to cause problems.
Yeah.
So, and like their whole friend group was involved in that video. Like she like called out like 4 or 5 people in that video.
I'm so glad that I didn't go to school during that, where we had cell phones and AI, like there's comments about AI. It's funny that we're talking about bullying. I was in the car with one of my coworkers. We were leaving a meeting, and he gave me a scenario because this ended up on the radio in our city, about this parent who knew that their child was being bullied. They addressed it with the school. The principals, nobody did anything. And everybody knew that this child was being bullied. Wow. So what this parent did as a dad, I don't agree. Well, I'll get to that in a minute. He went and then beat up this other kid's father. What you're not about to do is beat up. I'm like, you can't do that. You committed assault. There are other ways to address it, but that's another thing. Like, parents will also get involved. I'd be curious to know how that may vary culturally in other cultures. But like, I know good and well, I'm not saying my parents would ever put hands on somebody, but you better believe if I came home and said, hey, I'm being picked on and nobody's doing anything about it, Mr. and Mrs. finna roll up because they just didn't raise no punks. They're not going to throw hands, but you better believe they're going to fix it. And so I think it also depends on knowing that you have support, whether or not you have support at home. And these 2 young people didn't have that support in this book. Like, as a kid, if I know somebody picked on me, I'm going to go to my dad. Like, that dude had guns as his big arms, not literal guns.
Yeah.
But my dad was a force to behold when we were younger. Like, I wouldn't want him to roll up on me. So I think it depends also on that type of support that you do or do not have at home as well.
Yes. I loved how the mom reacted to all of this in the end. But it didn't seem like she was very connected with him, like, before that. I think she was probably unsure about certain things. Like, I remember when she was talking about him getting the surgery, she's like, I wasn't sure how you felt about that because I assumed that you knew your mom also had the same eye problem and didn't get it fixed. So, but in the end, she's really able to kind of open up to him and not just watch TV with him anymore like she usually does. You know? And she's like, nobody's going to force you to go back. So it was like, thank you.
She grew on me towards the end. She did.
I think from the beginning, she just like I think that's such a weird situation to walk into. Like, you marry this man and he has like a grown child, and like, how do you build a relationship with a child like that? Especially, he's such an introverted, quiet child, so he'd be very difficult to like get any real information from. And then like also feeling the guilt of like replacing his mom.
Mm-hmm.
I think
And
that would
then
be
his
difficult.
dad leaving them.
Yeah.
Like,
Dude, his dad's a terrible person. His dad's one of the bullies.
And one thing that this book did make me think of, speaking about the parents and how they handle it, and the parents, it just kind of reminded me in the back of my mind that you never know what somebody's going through at home, and why they may coming to school, why they may be coming to school very introverted, very withdrawn, dirty perhaps, etc. That you just don't know. And so that's where you get really frustrated with these bullies, because you're just like, if you were in their shoes, granted you'd have to care, but if you were in their shoes, you would think differently.
Isn't that one of like the main themes of this book, is like empathy and putting yourself into someone else's shoes? Like, that's kind of like what's her name? Now I'm mixing up all the names. K something. Kojima. That's kind of like her whole theme is around empathy and like teaching him how to put himself into someone else's shoes, and like through being able to see from her perspective, he starts being able to see from other people's perspective.
Right, because she's like, they are going to grow out of this, or they're going to like learn from, she's viewing them as the people that they could be in the future. And she doesn't want to stop them from becoming that. She wants to help them to become that. But it's very like Gandhi. Pretty intense to actually put up with what she put up with.
Yeah, Tony put a really interesting comment in the chat about, yes, that one, about whether surviving or fighting back is the solution to that kind of situation. Like, which is the better solution? Because the abuse, from what I saw from the book, it only progressed into getting worse as the story went on, to where it like culminates in that final scene where they're trying to make him do something which is like really illegal, first of all, but also like really horrendous from his point of view, just given the whole situation. And if he had done that, like, how much more would they try to push? Because it's just the like whole like what is it, like, if you give a mouse a cookie, then they're going to want a glass of milk, and then they're going to want a straw, and then they're going to want a nap, and like so on and so forth. Like, when people know that they can get away with things, they'll push it even further to see how much they can, especially with the perspective that Momose gave us, where it's just like a matter of, can they do it? When that's the perspective, they're going to continue to keep pushing, because it's fun for them to like see how far they can push somebody else.
Right.
Maybe we should talk about, why do you guys think the book is called Heaven, out of curiosity?
I actually highlighted something when they were at the museum about her favorite, her favorite painting is called Heaven. I think the answer.
For me, I felt like the ending, when the boy was able to suddenly see, I was like, oh, that's like his heaven. Like, he's relieved now because he's on the other side of all that terrible bullying, and he doesn't have to go back to school if he doesn't want to. And he knows that Kojima is now being taken care of, and he can see.
There's a quote there at the museum.
Yes, there is.
And she said, they made it through. That's why they can live in perfect harmony. After everything, after all the pain, they made it here. It looks like a normal room, but it's really heaven. And normalcy can be a type of heaven. When you come to a homeostasis of, my life is normal, there's a balance here. There is a peace in balance, in normalcy. It's not too extreme, and it's not too high, it's not too low. It's that in between of just comfortably going through what life should be.
Yes. Without unnecessary added terrors.
Right. Because even when you're in highs in life, like really good things are happening, that is also stressful. It can
Yeah.
be,
Mhm.
even good changes can be stressful. Like you got a new job and you're moving, and there's so much chaos that can go along with that. And it's change is a lot when you to get from point A to point B. But when it's those in betweens of everyday life, that is most of life. And when that's calm, that's a heaven
Yes.
where you're just not in survival mode all the time.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I just remembered something too. Sorry, this is a total sidetrack. When you were talking about it, I just remembered something I was going to say earlier. But the boys, at one point, the narrator asked Kojima, "Where do you think they learned this?" And I don't think that she answered that. But my
Children.
thought was, yeah, like Ninomiya and the other bullies, like where did they learn all the bullying tactics? And my thought was that they might have. I mean, they were like they read it in books, maybe they read about it in a book, but my thought was they probably experienced something like that,
Yeah.
themselves. Like a lot of bullies bully because they are bullied or they're made unhappy somewhere else in their home or
I want to be so
whatever.
negative. Can I be negative?
Yeah.
Human nature is going to human nature. I think ultimately humans, there's a comment here, and I agree with it. People can be just incredibly cruel. That children or
Mm,
adults. I used to work with youth, and
mm,
people can just be cruel. And some people they just make up sick stuff. They're either exposed
mm,
to it, like you said, in their private life,
mm.
or they're exposed to it through media, or they're just sick. Human, like if you look at the dawn of time, look at ancient texts, people are going to people.
Mm.
And, I think some people, maybe based on, you could argue, is this a dispositional thing? Are some people just more inherently genetically prone to more type of violence than others? Like what we saw in this book, I would never, none of this would ever come to my mind to do to another person, period.
Yeah,
So what, is
seriously.
there a disposition issue here? Cultural,
Lack of
demographic?
consequences.
Right, lack of
Like,
consequences.
Yeah.
Just like there's a quote that Momose said. He said, people do what they can get away with.
yeah.
Mm,
And so what happens when you have no boundaries? People are going to continue to push those boundaries because they can. But there also
Exactly.
has to be a type of, I think, what are you getting from that? There's got to be some type of like satisfaction to the people committing it.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't do that and go to sleep at night.
Yeah.
People can.
Well, they don't have the morality behind it where they don't see it as necessarily being a bad thing. They see it as like part of life. Like Momose
mm,
even was like,
Ooh, I
yeah,
love this
it is
comment.
what it is.
Yeah, I love this comment. That's so true. Because I work with youth. And when you're strict and you have boundaries and you have guidelines and they know that they are not going to be able to get over on you, they will uphold those guidelines.
mm,
Because I had after school youth at one point, and when I worked for Parks and Rec, I worked at a rec center that was attached to an elementary school, so we had them kindergarten to fifth grade, and they knew the staff. I was a supervisor under the supervisor, so those kids knew what staff they could get away with stuff in, and which they couldn't. And so when I would walk into a classroom, kids got silent because they knew Alana was not going to play, but they liked the structure and they liked the fairness when it came to
mm.
solving conflicts amongst kids. Because I mean, I've broken up so many fights.
Oh, that takes talent. I think we were mentioning earlier the things that kids now do with their smartphones and stuff.
Mhm.
And I think my husband works with he's in juvenile probation, but they spend a lot of time at schools just hanging out and talking with kids and helping them feel safe and messing around with them and building rapport because they don't want the kids to be afraid of them, but they
Mhm.
want them to know we're going to have rule of law here, basically. Um, and so he tells me sometimes the things that happen at school, and it's usually the really troubled kids who don't have parents supporting them at home. Their parents might be in prison or they might be drug dealers. We live in a high drug traffic area. And that's like a big cause. But a lot of the kids who are perpetuating the more sexual nature crimes against other kids, they've usually had it done to them.
Yeah.
So you
Right.
do wonder, at 12, what has Nanomiya seen that or you said he's like 14, so maybe he's a little older. So who knows what he's been exposed to by then. But
Yeah.
I was going to say with the internet, but this was written, this takes place when you don't have social media and cell phones in pockets. So,
oh yeah, when is this set?
It's like the
I want to
80s.
say late 80s,
80s.
early 90s, something like
Because
that.
they have a comment like, "What do you think 2000 will be like? Let's meet up with each other in 2000." And it was
Right.
like at least 10 years away from the conversation. I don't
Right.
remember the exact dates, but it was like at least I knew for a fact it was taking place in the 80s.
Right. So there might be even a situation where not everybody has a computer in their home. That would still be uncommon. So the access to, say, certain types of content online that is
Yeah.
X-rated, you wouldn't even have ready access to that.
Thank goodness. I think a
know.
lot of kids
Oh.
are being exposed to that early now.
Just kidding.
Oh,
It's set
yeah.
in 1991.
Oh, I was close. Okay.
Oh, no.
I said late 90s. I said late 80s.
Yeah, same. So I was just off by a little. I do just really remember that conversation where 2000 was about 10 years away in the future.
Yeah, something like that.
Because they were like, let's meet up after 2000 on a Wednesday or blah, 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 blah. It was like a whole little thing. They had that conversation after the museum or something.
Yes. Okay. Sorry, I sort of co-opted the direction of the live stream.
It's your live stream. Take it whatever direction you want. We're here
I
for the
asked
ride.
a question, then changed it suddenly. But I had been trying to think of that earlier because that's something that came up to me while I was reading this. But Lord of the Flies, have you guys read that?
I haven't read it since the 8th grade.
I actually never read it in school because of timing in my English classes. So I actually missed that book.
I remember it being brutal. I remember vaguely, I remember it being brutal. I remember that in my 8th grade English class, we read that and Animal Farm back to back. My English teacher did on purpose.
Yeah.
To show, behavior.
It's a lot of the same.
And I remember recently, within the past couple of years, Googling and kind of looking at analysis on, the author and why he wrote it the way that he did and why it's so brutal. It was right off World War II. So this comment about just how this gross human nature is, and it's not just exhibited in adults. Like we all have this innate corruption and within us, and any of us can turn depending on the circumstances. I do remember that vaguely, but that's definitely a book I need to reread again in the 8th grade at 14 years old. How much did I retain and how much did I retain?
Anything I read in school, I'm going to have to read again as an adult because I did not understand it.
But I remember even for 14-year-olds, Animal Farm and Lord of the Flies, we discussed together, sparking a lot of philosophical little light bulbs going off in our developing brains about human nature.
That's a good teacher right there.
Oh, she was excellent. I can't remember her name, but she was great. I remember her being from New York. I remember that. And she moved to where I live, and she was like, "Why is it so hot here?" That's all I remember.
Not expecting it.
No.
All right. Now, okay. I wanted to go back to this question because we didn't ask Michi. Do you have a thought on this, Michi?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, so just kind of like thinking this through, heaven is the name that she gives the painting that gives her a feeling of peace. And at the end, he experiences that feeling of peace. And I think it's kind of like, what is your peace? What is your heaven? And that's different for everyone. And you might even say that heaven for like Momose is just going with the flow and doing whatever. And maybe heaven is whatever Nanomiya is doing or whatever. Heaven is your peace, your individual peace. And that is, different for everyone. But I mean, we'd obviously like it all to be positive and, beneficial to everyone, but it's not necessarily. And almost like her experience with the painting was almost like an escape from her reality. She felt at peace finally. So I wonder how much of that is an element as well. I think I'm sure that the reason that she called it heaven, well, okay, I'm saying I'm sure, but I think that that's just like such an important moment in the story when they're at the museum, and that's like the first time that they really like connect on an interpersonal level, because they've written their letters to each other, they've met in the staircase, but it was like the first time they spent like a full day together. And I don't know about you, but I have like really vivid pictures from that scene. I don't know what the paintings look like, but I have very vivid like imagination of like what it would be like to be in that museum and then for them to sit outside. I just it'd be interesting to know why she called it heaven, but I feel like that's a very because heaven isn't necessarily in this case like what most people think when they hear the word heaven, like the Christian outcome. Versus in this case, she's referring to a painting that isn't even called heaven. It's called like some lame name, like person and like woman at the beach or whatever whatever artists name their little like sketches that somehow become popular years after they're gone. Yeah, I think it's also like a novella, right? And so you want to pick the title that has like a lot of significance to the rest of the story, but also leaves like a sort of like visual with you. So like if you're like writing a chapter, a lot of times the chapter title or the short story title is a word that's said at some point within the story that has a lot of significance within the story thematically and visually. And I think that's kind of what's being done here as well. Just like from a writer perspective, I think that's why as well. But I'd be curious, like her more in-depth reasoning.
Yes. I think all of us kind of put together have a pretty good idea now. I think all of our answers together sort of have a pretty good. I'm always amazed on these live streams how I can come with a question and be like, well, I had this idea, but then you guys have two totally different ideas, and they all kind of they all enrich each other. So thank you. That was great.
And maybe she called it heaven as an open-ended question because she knows the readers are going to ask, what's heaven about this book? But it's just it's an open-ended question. It is what you make it. It is how you interpret it.
That's a good point. The book itself is not comfortable to read at all. No. Not at all. I would not say I'm in a state of heaven when I'm reading that book.
It doesn't make you feel good.
No, it feels horrendous. I feel so bad for the main character. I just want to hug him and let him know that everything's going to be okay. He's just so sweet, just so kind.
Yes. And I love how she notices that, and that like really speaks to him, that she's noticed you're a very kind person because of your experiences. Yeah.
He's so cute. He's like, I'm not a good writer, and like I feel so uncomfortable writing this, and she's just like brain dumping on every single letter. She's just like, here's all my thoughts. Oh my God, like what about this? What about this? What about this?
Relatable.
And he's like, I went to school today. I saw you at school today. Wow. His letters are like just so matter of fact, and I love it.
Girls are usually girls do develop like verbally, it seems like a little earlier than boys.
Yeah.
Very evident.
I'm really into personality theory, and I really like seeing the comparison of their two personalities. So like the main girl, now I'm forgetting everyone's name again. Kojima. Oh my God, this is so frustrating that it's because I called the wrong name for the boy, and now I'm just not trusting my ability to remember any of their names. Kojima has like really strong in MBTI, it's like introverted feeling, but like Alana mentioned this as well. Like she has a really clear sense of like what's right and what's wrong. And I would say that Kojima is very much so like that. Like she has a really strong sense of morality. But the main character doesn't necessarily have a super strong sense of morality. He actually has no idea what his morality is, and he's a little confused by morality. But he's trying to find the consistency in the world around him. He's trying to look for like the the consistent logic that kind of drives everyone's behavior. That's what he's looking for. She's putting reason and meaning, and he's just trying to figure out, why are things working this way? Like, why is this the way things are? And like, what can I believe about the world based on this information? So like, they're both coming at these situations from a really opposing point of view, but they're still like having empathy and finding those answers together. I don't even know that he comes out of this with a sense of morality, just more confusion, but maybe he has more confidence in the laws that guide society afterwards.
Mm-hmm. Maybe maybe a little bit more jaded.
Yeah. Or confident, you know.
So that's okay. That is really interesting. I never even thought about that he's always looking for the why. Why is life like this? But you're right. He was always asking
and he wants somebody to tell it to him.
Yeah, he wants somebody
to give him a definite answer, and he's not getting that definite answer. He's getting a different answer from Momose, and then he's getting a different answer from Kojima.
Yeah. Because Momose is like complete lack of morality at all. Like he couldn't even be bothered to worry about what morality is. Yeah, he's just like, I do what's fun for me, and you know, I'm just doing my thing. I'm going with the flow.
He's like, it's a dog eat dog world out there. He's like, you better do what you can to stop it, or else you're just gonna get chewed up and spit out.
So what's really funny in an MBTI sense, in this system called sociology, which is sociology, which is like, or no, socionics. Sorry, sociology is the study of people dynamics. Socionics is MBTI through the lens of social dynamics.
Mm-hmm.
And the main character is an INTP, which is like the introverted logic is all about like making sense of the world, but then their extroverted intuition is about like collecting those possibilities and trying to explore those possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
But Momose is an ESTP, which is all about like being present, being in the moment, and also having that logic line. But because it's not their priority, he can get by without things making a whole lot of sense, and he'll just like come up with some kind of logic and just kind of go with it. And in socionics, that relationship is called a supervisory relationship, because they share that introverted thinking, which is like they want to have that logic for the world to like trust and to go by. But the INTP has absolutely like no extroverted sensing. Like they're very disconnected from their reality and their physical reality, especially. So I find it very interesting. And also another word for extroverted sensing is like force, like applying force to a situation to like make it happen. And this character, Momose, is like, you know, you have to apply the force if you want to make any change to the situation, and has like absolutely no emotional connection to the situation at all, which is why I think it makes it easier for the main character to accept that feedback, even though it's so different from his point of view. He can still accept that because it's coming from in socionics, it's the supervisory relationship, but I find it very fascinating.
Socionics. I've never even heard that term before.
It's like MBTI but on crack. So it's very intense. It's made by a man in Russia who basically took sociology and applied it to personality theory.
Is that how you spell it?
Yeah, with an N. Socionics.
Nix. Okay,
yeah.
Thank you.
But yeah, it's like sociology and personality theory had a baby, and they're basically like, these are how people's relationships and dynamics play based on how their brain works. Because the personality theory is like how your brain processes and reacts to information without context of your experience. It's just how your brain is actually functioning. And socionics is like the study of how this brain function compared to this brain function, when they interact, here's where they disconnect and here's where they connect and why. So it's a very interesting system, but it is very complex because there's a lot of definitions and things that you have to understand how it works in general. So it's a very complex system, but I enjoy it.
I love that you can bring that to the table, Michi. Yeah, even just like plain old MBTI is like really complicated, but you have a really good understanding of it.
Yeah, sociotics makes MBTI look simple.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of when you're like reading the descriptions of like MBTI, it's like, oh, this you might be this, but then it's an introverted this, and then but suddenly this can make it extroverted.
Yeah.
It's like,
There's a range within the letters too.
Yep. Yeah. Well, because, at the end of the day, it's just how your brain functions. So your personal experience can impact how you use your brain and how you interact with the tools that you have. So it's kind of like, you're born with a specific operating system in your brain. Like, let's say, Chrissy, you have Windows operating system, and Alana, you have Mac operating system, and I have Linux operating system. But at the end of the day, we can still open a web browser. We could open the same web browser. We could open the same websites. But our functioning and how we do that on the back end, what people aren't necessarily seeing, that's what's different, which is why personality theory can be difficult, because, what people show on the outside can look very, very similar, but have a very different root cause to that behavior or that interpretation.
That tracks. Like how I couldn't figure out how to get my camera on today.
No, and I also thought that was really funny how frustrated you got because in personality theory, the IJs and the EPs were the ones that are most likely to get frustrated by that kind of stuff.
I can't stand it when stuff doesn't do what it's supposed to do.
Yeah, we're most likely to get frustrated by that stuff. Yeah. So,
like, I need you to be efficient.
Yeah.
Is there anything
efficient.
Was there anything else you guys want to talk about before we bring the live show to a close? Or did you have any questions about the text that you wanted to ask the group?
I don't think I do. I think we've covered all the bases.
Okay, because I had a couple questions. So, first of all, I wanted to ask, why does Momose smile and look pleased at the end when Kojima does what she does? And but then he runs away and you don't ever like talk to him again. But I'm like, what? And then also Ninomiya blushes when Kojima like touches his face. So I'm curious what's going on.
Sorry, I was watching her facial reaction.
What?
I have no
watching her face while you were asking the question.
I must have been reacting to what you were saying on my face.
Yep.
Oh.
I have no poker face. It is a fact. Whatever I'm feeling is directly going to be portrayed on my face. No, I think that the reason that he smiled at the end is because I think he was like, okay, I think that he's the type of person that wants everyone to do their own thing. And I think he saw the weakness in the main character as a negative thing. Like he saw him as being passive and just letting things happen to him. And I think it gave him a lot of joy to see this boy like finally do something and like take a proactive position. I think that got him excited, not necessarily for any kind of moral reason, but more so just like the fact that he finally took an active position as opposed to a passive position in his bullying. And, as to why What's His Nose blushed, there's a strong possibility he had a crush on her. I mean, a lot of times people do bully the person that they have a crush on more than anyone else.
Really?
I agree with Michi that Momose saw there was an assertiveness that he saw being taken, because when he has this conversation, outside the hospital with our main character, he's like, you can stop this.
Yeah.
You can stop this. And when he saw Kojima do what she did, he was like, she's confronting the situation in her own way. And so he just saw that assertiveness, whether or not he agreed with it or not. He saw her not being passive, like Michi said, and doing what she felt needed to be done to address the issue. And when she touched him, when she touched the other man, to me, or the other boy, to me, she broke a barrier there by touching him. there had been so much physical abuse in this story on both of these characters, Kojima and our narrator. She broke that barrier and gently touched him.
Mm.
He was confronted with her touch, but in a way that made him think a little bit. He was like, why is she doing this? It was just uncomfortable for him because she also was being assertive. She broke that barrier. And so he was like, oh, to me, this is just me. Oh, I'm blushing because I'm uncomfortable. She's naked. She's emaciated in a park right before a thunderstorm. Like, it turned on him in a way that he was not expecting. He was so used to having control in the situation. And she took that control back in a really weird way, but she did it. I feel like I got super hyped doing that. I did it.
Was that like a moment you were excited about in the story when they were finally kind of reacting?
Oh yeah, because I'm like a very assertive person.
So you were like waiting for it.
Yeah, I was waiting for it. Like, I mean, it's a short book, but I'm super assertive. Like, people, like I said earlier, like, people have tried to bully me, and it, like, when I was in school, it didn't work because I'm gonna verbally tell you where to go and how to get there. Like, that's also my personality type. So I'm really like, come on, give them what you got. You know, I'm gonna throw a rock, do something, throw hands. You know, like, I wake up hype. You know? Like,
she
I
wakes
have
up
no
and
money for myself just in case. You know, like, I'm not going down without a fight. And so that's just me. And so when I see people like do what they have to do to stand up for themselves, I'm like, yeah, you get it. You know, that's me.
I think earlier in the book they said, I think we're just objects to them. We're not people to them. So when they started to have these human reactions, it made them realize these are people, you know? Maybe that's what I'm wondering. So that was great. Thank you guys. And thank you everybody. Thank you everybody for coming. Huge thanks to Michi and Alana for being here today.
It's always fun.
Yes, I agree. I always look forward to these so much. So I hope you all enjoyed Heaven and this discussion. And thank you so much for coming in the comments and leaving us discussion comments to add to the discussion. We really love hearing from you guys. And there's a couple more here. That's interesting. I didn't know this. I think in younger kids, you know, I'd heard, you know, if a boy is teasing you, he probably likes you, you know, something like that. But I hadn't heard of like if a boy is bullying you, he might like you. I don't know. That's a little intense.
Yeah.
I was not aware of that. That's a confused boy right there.
I mean, yeah.
I guess they might think any attention is good attention. But anyways, thank you all again, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
I'm